Make sure everything's going here. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another wonderful live show we have. My awesome friend. Whoops, I never point the right direction. Over here, all the way across the pond in Estonia, my good friend Zez, aka Lewis. How are you, my good buddy?
I'm doing well. It's Friday afternoon. I'm having a beer. We got a couple of beers going on, and yeah, the weather's nice, and it's good to hang out and just chat after a long week, mate. So yeah, so much has gone on. Let's talk about it.
Awesome, yeah. So first off, thanks everybody for joining. We're on like a two-week actual regularity for the show. 2 weeks. So first off, I want to make sure to say, please, if you can, drop a like on the broadcast so that everybody will get a notification. That really is the only thing that we could do to help spread the word that we're on live today, is do that. There also is a tweet that Lewis and I have put out that if you want to repost that, that will be helpful. But otherwise, buckle up. Let's have a good time. We're going to talk about a crazy CRT repair and get into that a little bit more. Before we do that, we'll talk about some funny things, take a few minutes to catch up on things with Zez here. I see that we have some people in the chat. We have the legendary Bob from Retro RGB here. Thanks, Bob, for stopping in and chilling this morning. And
as I've understood, Bob told us earlier, Bob's going to have a stream at 12. It's 11 now Eastern. He's going to have 12. Definitely don't go to Bob. It's going to suck. He's just going to have his big fucking man boobs hanging out. Bob's the only person you can smell through the camera. So definitely at 12 o'clock, don't watch Bob's stream. You know, anyway. So
there you go. Yeah, we'll make sure that we just go straight into the 12 o'clock hour and just bust on through it. You know, and Bob's just gonna have to pass the torch. But anyway, Bob's here. Also, Edward, man, your cables came in, dude. Awesome, thank you. Edward sent me some SCART cables, handmade from Estonia, which we've talked about in the past.
No, Albania.
Albania. Sorry. I have you on my man. Something it ends in an It ends in an So yes, no, but Edward, awesome. Thank you so much.
Albania. So yeah, we'll talk about those. If you're in
yeah,
Europe or anywhere, actually, you're looking for some good handmade, handcrafted analog video cables, Edward's there. We'll talk a little more about that in a moment.
Yeah, so we'll look at these more because I also got the Sony PVM shipped here. It's actually right on the other side of the store. So we'll wheel that in later too and hook up some of these cables and test them out. I've got a Dreamcast one here I've been wanting to try, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. So thanks again, Edward, for sending those in. We'll look at them. And I'll make sure to make a post tagging Edward on Twitter and so you can go check out those. If you are in Europe, they're a great option, you know, to get some cables. So that's going on. Thank you again, everybody in the chat. What's going on with you, Lewis? Real quickly.
Yeah, I mean, look, a father of 4-month-old twins, so that takes up a lot of my time. Sleepless nights and everything. They are definitely getting a little better at sleeping. That is nice. So just working on that. In my crazed midnight lack of sleep kind of hazes, I buy a lot of retro PC gear. I've been building a bunch of retro PCs, and I'm probably up to 6 by now. This is my mania, and not just like I buy a whole unit, like I buy bits and pieces. And one bit that might be interesting for the people right here. I've got this adapter, just a bit of show and tell. That's Lewis's show and tell today. And this is called a slot key adapter. So there was the original slot 1 CPUs. They were those big bastards back in the Pentium 2, Pentium 3, those big bastard chips that were like a big thing like this. And after that, Intel came out with the Socket 370, which is much closer to a regular CPU like you know today. But then they allowed these things called slot keys, and you can put a Socket 370 into the big slot 1. And I bought one of these, and I'm embarrassed to say how much I paid for this. I paid about 90 euros shipped for this. So the reason that I've got one of these is because I picked up a dual slot 1 motherboard. And this is quite a rarity. It cost me 90 euros in itself. And it's not just like these days we've got hyper-threading, we've got multiple cores and stuff like this, right? This is like actual two CPUs, two physical CPUs. And actual slot one, the big black cartridge looking like chips, that's like they're like if you want to get like a Pentium 3 900, 800, 900, 1000, something like that, you're talking like 200, 300, 400 or more right now for those. But the socket 370 equivalent isn't too bad. I bought a Pentium 3 900 for $15. It was great. The problem is I need one of these things and I need two of these things for two CPUs. So my long-term project is this dual slot one motherboard. I found one of these for 90 and I'm like not in a rush to buy the second one. So it's one of those things I've bought. I'm going to leave it here. I can just stare at it and think about my terrible financial choices. For something that I'm never going to be using for a couple of years that I'm building.
No, that's all right, right? It's always fun to have these projects, going on. You're always going to be doing something. So yeah, like I don't know what I've been.
In the chat, who's building? Anyone in the chat been building retro PCs?
It sounds like it's something that I will tell you one other thing that kind of goes down that pathway. As any of this stuff gets harder to find, and it seems like everything has a community around it, like kind of gobbling up all the good stuff. Right? Yeah. Something. So even like retro, that's why these parts you're talking about are hundreds of dollars. It's not, it's because these specific ones are such collectible to certain people. But I bought, so you could see right behind me, it doesn't really matter what they are. There's like a half a dozen big box PC games from that final like big box PC game era with like CDs and stuff. And they're complete. They were from like Goodwill for $2 or $3 when nobody really cared to want them. I just thought they looked cool on a shelf. Well, I started looking them up and they're up to selling for $30 to $40 a pop just on eBay. And I have no idea.
They're growing back towards their retail price.
Yeah.
Right? There's this like roller coaster.
It's done like that. And I'm like, I didn't even realize they were worth anything. Cause
there's that window. So and while I'm complaining about spending 90 euros on this slot key adapter, right? I understand that I have definitely missed the window. I should have been in a few years on that. And it's like the same thing in retro video games. That window moves, and you might say with retro video games, maybe the window is now at Wii games, Xbox 360, PlayStation. Like now's the time to buy that stuff. The PS2, definitely PS1, that's on the way up. And if you go to the later PS4, well, that's still kind of current. So, they got regular prices. So now's the time to buy that generation. So if anyone again is building retro PCs, like a few generations later than that is actually where it's at. It's socket 775, Intel Core 2 Duos, maybe the early, like now you want to get the early i3s, i5s, that first generation. They're the ones you can get for like $5, $10. So I think it's just a matter of like being in there when the stuff's cheap, and that gives me an excuse to be a dirty hoarder and hoard the stuff when it's $5, $10, because in a few years, that window will have passed.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously coming up to the point where you're talking about like PlayStation 4, but that's really going to be like that and Switch are pretty much the end of real, actual like physical media to collect, kind of. So yeah, people can collect that now while it's cheap, because after that, it's pretty much the end of mass-produced collectible media for video games, unless it's like something weird, specific collector's edition of a game that is essentially nothing more than a couple of bells, whistles, and toys associated with a download code.
I wonder, and to pile onto that, I wonder if Switch will ever be cheap. So right now we might say Wii is cheap.
But what about like the XLs and like the 3DS? That stuff now is expensive. Like and
it's
has
getting there.
been.
Yep, definitely. So
And
it's the
so,
latest
yeah,
stuff.
is the Switch ever going to go? I mean, you could get probably a Switch
maybe
unit for
I'm
cheap.
picking on Wii. It was like the most sold ever or something,
Yeah.
right? And had bazillions of titles, and so much of it was shovelware. Fair enough. I guess I'm just picking on. I guess the point I was trying to make is that Nintendo has done such an effective job of holding up the prices of Switch games. Like, you're still paying the same friggin' price for Mario Kart that you were 10 years ago, whatever it was, right? Like, they don't drop the price ever, which has kept the whole tide of prices up. So it's going to be very interesting. And as you say, Steve, there's no these new Switch 2 download cartridges or whatever bullshit this is, right? You know, will those Switch games ever go down in price? I don't know.
The shovelware, right? Probably some of them will, but not. I mean, you're right. There's other ones been maintaining a price, and
yeah, if you look at the
their classics are never really going.
I don't know if I'm drawing the wrong comparison, but I'm trying to go popular Wii games compared to popular Switch games. So popular, it's the same titles, right? Nintendo, it's Mario Kart, it's the Mario games, it's all of that. Those in the Wii generation, the popular games have so many copies being sold that their price is actually quite down, especially in Japan. You can buy all those Mario Kart, the Marios, there's so many around that's driven the prices down. But at the Switch generation, Nintendo's kept the price up. You can't buy a cheap copy of Mario Kart on Switch. You can't get a cheap copy of Link's Awake, Breath of the Wild or whatever, right? Because the price is high. Any of the Marios, price is high. And it's kind of blown my mind. Maybe someone in the chat can chime in. What do you guys think about this, I don't want to say inflated cost of this generation?
And like, what are gamers actually doing? Are they trading in these a lot of these Switch titles, or are they keeping them too? I feel like with the Switch, again, we are literally in with the Switch we're on now. The last like ones of these games where you could probably just pop it in a Switch that you find that's not connected to the internet and still somehow play a version of the game, right? I mean, most of them don't need some kind of download update to play some version of the game. So that's the last generation of that. So yeah, maybe these Switch titles that have been inflated kind of and kept high this whole time never will go down, because there's never going to be a glut of them coming on the marketplace. And but there's a lot out there. But again, since there's no more physical media coming after the fact, like when the Wii was made, the Wii also was like, we got to get this Wii product out of here in the way for the next. Well, I mean, I guess the Wii U still played the Wii games, but I guarantee you they were like,
well, the Switch 2 is still going to play the Switch game.
Right. So there's another good thing for them.
Relevant. But you make such a good, this is what I think it hasn't played out yet about the supply and demand of Switch games. As you say, the prices stayed up. I sold a bunch of Switch games recently for, like, I sold Skyward Sword, Link, very good, popular title, Skyward Sword, popular thing, and I sold it for like $40 still, like a reasonable amount of money. So the price, and that is because the price of the new game is still high, and but as you say, Steve, there is still a lot out there in people's hands. These games are apparently, Mario Kart is still selling month after month, fucking 8 years later, which tells you there is supply sitting out there. So how will that play out? Will at some stage that supply hit the market and drive down prices? I don't know. Now, John in the chat says he's buying up Switch shmups, which are finally getting cheap. Now, that's interesting because that's a niche. It's not the Mario Karts and the high ones, it's the shmups. Now, shmups always keep their price. And if this is the shmup roller coaster is
it's like so you could be getting it when it goes down. I think
I was definitely not selling my shmups. I've got a few of the Psychos, a few of those.
Okay.
I'm definitely not selling those for a couple of years if I was going to get rid of them.
Well, those could take off too, since there's like not as many of them. All of a sudden you sell it and you come back to it, and it's like tripled the price for some reason.
But I feel like even with
with this Switch 2 coming out, it's only going to keep a lot of these other Switch 1 titles elevated because you're going to have a long time of not a lot of great titles. These regular Switch titles are still great, so they're going to translate over to people getting the new Switch. They're still going to be playing those old Switch games on a new Switch, right? And it's going to bring also like the kids that are like, well, I feel like there's so many Switch hardwares out there. There's going to be the kids that like maybe they're on their parents can't afford this new Super Switch with the new Mario Kart. They're going to be going out to shops getting a used Switch for $120 and then buying the other copies of Mario Kart from last year and saying, well, you don't have anything, maybe this, right? So there's going to be some of that.
PlayStation.
Yeah.
I think that's what's happened already on PlayStation. No one can afford a PS5, so we're still living off PS4.
Until they finally say no more like of these certain types of games are made for PS4. Finally cut. But there was 2 years of making everything from PS4 on PS or 5 on 4.
Going to Ronnie in the chat. So Ronnie's talking about the way that Switch 1 games are played on Switch 2. And he's saying it's emulation. And Ronnie, I was watching a few videos on this, doing my own independent research. And as I understand, it's not as clear cut as just saying, oh, the Switch 2 emulates the Switch 1. It's not like a full software emulation solution. What it's doing like and look, I'm really butchering the technicals here, but it's doing the emulation at a much lower level, like changing byte codes and calls and stuff like this. So it's tough to say like, oh, it's emulation like we know at a high level. It's quite low level emulation. So yes, it's not running like native, but it's like just modifying low level system calls to kind of map it onto new things. So the perception is that there's not really a difference in the emulation kind of thing. But then again, people fucking argue that the VGA is an emulation on it. So people argue endlessly about the emulation topic.
Right. Absolutely. Always. Like every week. It's some duking it out. Okay. That's a good warm up. We've gone 18 minutes. Let's jump over to the main topic here.
Let's do it.
Let's jump into this. All right, let me set this up a little bit. This is a huge monitor. This is one of my clients on my Patreon sent this gigantic CRT to me. They sent in a CRT a couple years ago. I think it was I want to say it was a 29, and I want to say it was a 3230. And I fixed it and sent it back, and he's always had this crazier, bigger one that was this 37-inch Mitsubishi, if I could even say that right. So I'm going to switch over. First off, I'm going to pull up some picture files so everybody can see this. I've got quite a bit here. We'll start at picture file number 1. We're going to pull this up over Lewis's face, and then we'll go straight to just his. Go through these pictures. So this is the back of this CRT. You could tell from the other CRTs. I couldn't move this thing. Randy's in the chat. Randy Davis is in the chat right now, and this is the guy who owns this monitor. So he sent this one in, and I want to say it was like fall when it arrived. Like early fall, something like that. It was about to be cold. I couldn't move this thing out of this area. Once it was delivered, it was set on this countertop you see, which is actually on high quality, like caster wheels, so it can be rolled around. But it's, I'm not moving this thing, like lifting it. No way. But anyway, this is the CRT. I've already got the shell off here. All he told me was, when I first got it here, was that it would blow fuses. And I was like, man, that sounds like it could be anything, right? Just blow fuses. So when I first got it in, I did not do any kind of test. I just... I knew that it had a blown fuse in it, so I knew that I couldn't get it to work. I was just inspecting stuff. I could tell that someone had been in here before. Just to give you a layout of the back of this monitor, what you're seeing right here, this is the main power supply board. Right under that, I'm sorry, to the right of that is the input output board, which is just an insane input output board, which we'll see. Like, I'll have the shielding on it by the end of this slideshow, so you can see what it all accepts. Yeah, so apparently he bought it from somebody. Okay, I wasn't really sure what the history was on it, but it was something that somebody had gotten into, and somebody had completely recapped it. Like, but they were not, I'm going to be honest, they were not skilled enough to do it. They did a lot of damage to it. One of the things that was the most insane on this, Lewis, was this. This is the anode cap. And you look at it at first, and it doesn't look that inconspicuous, okay? But as I take this off, you're going to pretty much be blown away. So this is, again, the anode cap at the top where the high voltage goes in. At first, I was like, well, that doesn't look right. Something looks weird about it.
Is that gray stuff normal?
Well, that gray stuff is normal on that era. What they would do in this time period is they would put the anode cap in, and then they would put a silicone around it so that you would have to carefully slice the silicone away from the tube. And there's a method. I know how to cut it away, but since it's on there, if you're not careful with your knife, you could easily slice your cap and destroy it trying to get it ripped out of this. So I saw that and I was like, oh, great. Here we go. Here we go. Number one. Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I haven't showed any shout outs in the chat today. But thank you for being here. I saw some guys that are usual to the show. Ronnie, what's up? John and Steve's assorted stuff. Great stuff. Thank you for being here. Stefan, everybody. Anyway, back to the CRT. Anyway, that's what I saw. So as I go through it, let's keep going. I follow down, I trickle down to this flyback, and I'm like, why the heck is there a bunch of grease right here? Like, this is just my detective work going. I'm looking around some more. I look at the neck area. Don't really see much. This is the other side where it's got the, that is the deflection card. And this is a daughter breakout board for the deflection card. Oh, I'm not sure about the weight. Hundreds of pounds, though. Like, there were two guys who were professionally hired movers to came and brought this thing, and I thought they were about to die squishing themselves. Almost dropped this thing on themselves, and because I was so leery to even touch this darn thing. Because I don't like to do this kind of repair work. We have no idea what's going on. Anyway, fuses are blowing, so that makes me wonder what's going on with the power supply. Okay, well, and that's just my thinking cap. First, I saw that anode cap I just explained to you. Then I'm going to move on and look at this power supply. And I mean, just from like sight on this side, I'm starting to see some really ugly stuff, right? I mean, some really ugly stuff that makes me think, what the heck happened here? Obviously, you got areas that had been resoldered, areas where no solder's been touched up. But that's my inspection process going through it. And I'm like, man, this just does not look good. Anyway, you'll see some more pictures of that in a moment. Here's the other side of that anode cap. You can see where that silicone was on there, and there was just, I mean, it was so much dielectric grease. Hey, Andre, welcome in. So much dielectric grease in there. I got more than I had ever seen.
Do you reckon that grease was stock or from the person?
No. The person who was working on it put it on there. So here's the deal with this thing. This is the power supply board right here that I'm trying to get to, the main power supply board right there at the bottom. Attached to that is a flyback transformer board right here, and then another breakout power board. So there's this 3-board bundle, all connected in sequence. And if you notice right here, they are soldered together. Like, you cannot remove each board independently. You have to remove that whole board bundle to get that out and service that one board. So you have to discharge the tube. That's why I had to remove the anode cap. And also, it's soldered to the neck board. So those cables come over and they're soldered to the neck board. So you cannot get any of that out without taking all 4 of those boards out. So that's the process to getting to that. I mainly take these pictures to show what this monitor looks like when I want to come back and reassemble it, everybody. This is very important. If you're going to mess with these things, anything really, take a lot of pictures, because you will never know when you have a question about the way to hook something up, or like even the way a part is installed. And having these photographs going back to when you first looked at it is really invaluable. So here's the full bundle, everything. I finally got this single board taken out, and I'm inspecting it closer. This is just showing what it looks like after. Gosh, I mean, somebody recapped it, but this is the.
Is that the anode cap?
Oh, this is the anode cap, dude. This is Jack the Ripper. I mean, couldn't have sliced up an anode cap dirtier than this thing. Wait till you see, and look at all the grease. Somebody like slathered that bad boy in, and I mean, there's nothing left. Like, it was actually under this grease, it was split all the way through it like a S. It was barely hanging on. So this, I never actually seen anybody do this. This was a different anode cap where they'd actually cut the center out of it and just like thought they could slap a washer on the outside of that and just stick so much grease on it that it wouldn't make any change. It would actually work like that.
Hillbilly engineering.
So somebody got it over their heads and just kept going down this rabbit hole of amazement. And I'm about to show you all how to fix this. So I'll show you the secret to how I fix this anode cap. Just do me a favor if you haven't already. Here's my shameless plug. Drop a like for us on this video, and we can move on here. So everybody, drop a like real quick, and let me catch my breath. Let's go see here. Here's some more pictures of this murdered anode cap. And again, I was talking to Randy after this, and I was like, look, dude, I can't tell you the truth. To tell you the truth, I have no idea what the actual culprit is in this, right? My ideas are the power supply. And if I can get the power supply working, then I can move on from there and troubleshoot down the road to see if anything else is not working. But the idea of the way that it looked on that flyback, both the cap and the fact that there was all this gloop here, made me suspect that, God bless it, maybe this guy had like fried the flyback, you know? And if the flyback's...
Why
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, what are they doing? I made me wonder, is it split right there? Is it arcing if you get it working right? So I was thinking, damn, like this thing might be screwed. Even if I get the power into it, it may never turn on, right? So anyway, that's that. Here's a lot of those points. Oh, look, like this is what I was finding. Look at this. This is a replaced capacitor. Okay. I mean, I'm not. And then like, I would be scared. I'm going to tell you the truth. Personally, I would be scared to death to leave to service a CRT, leaving one board in this condition and go back and testing it. Right. Like if I saw my work after I was done before I plugged it back in and it looked like this shit, I would be like, dude, I need to take another second, and I need to clean all this off to make sure I've not done anything wrong. Because what had happened, I kept inspecting. I thought I took pictures of it, and maybe it's later on. Here's another point. Look at that, where a replaced capacitor with like just poor solder. Anyway, I'd found points where there was a bridge. And I don't know where. Maybe I could show you. Hopefully I have a picture of it somewhere. But I found like bridged points where that will eventually lead to what ultimately happened on the problem of this. Here's your anode cap repair, everybody. Thank you for hitting the like button. Here's the secrets of the anode cap fix. I'll be honest with you. I have never, ever, ever done this before. Never done this, okay? This was all just in my brain. I was like, what the hell am I going to do about this anode cap? I found a Sony PVM with a shorted flyback. For sure, shorted flyback. And what I did is I cut this cable off of it. This came out of the PVM. And I pulled that out of this end, so I had a fresh, salvaged, high quality PVM use, not some cheap crap that you would buy now. I wasn't comfortable buying a new, thing really. I wanted to have a pro model. So I took that.
Like, you can buy that? You can buy what, like?
Yeah, I mean, you can buy
buy?
salvaged ones off eBay for like $15.
Okay, yeah.
Here's the actual model number. I knew I had this picture somewhere. But this one was crazy. I mean, somebody had like rubbed the manufacturing number, the serial number off it.
Yeah.
And you could tell too that it had been painted. The shell had been painted over. Like somebody put tape on it and painted on it. But that's the actual model. And here's the other
This
cap.
thing like an illegal gun, just rubbing the cereal.
I mean, this was the most unreal like thing again. Yeah, Randy, and I'll be honest, Randy had way more faith in me. I was looking at this shit and I was like, Randy, this shit's nuts, man. This is not going to work. I was like, this is no way going to work. Okay, so here we have the Mitsubishi's anode. I have removed this cap. You can see there's the butchered cap, completely gone. What else did I forget to show that? Surely not. Maybe I did. Okay, so notice on this, there's a plate. There's a plate right here. Do you see how the anode has this spring that hooks to the tube, and then there's that steel circle plate? That's a washer that goes in between there. It's not welded. It's a washer, or whatever you want to call it. Washer, I don't know. I had to, that took the longest. That took the longest. I had to carefully bend that without breaking any parts of it. That took me like 45 minutes to bend that little piece of shit. And get it off that prong without breaking it. Because I was like, I'm going to need to reuse this. So there's the naked prong, and I'm looking at it. Oh, yeah. And what it is it's this flyback cable comes up. It's got a single high gauge cable that comes around, and then there's this metal piece, and this cable just wraps around it, and it's barely soldered to it. Barely soldered on there.
That's what makes the connection to the
That's
pin.
what makes the connection straight from the high voltage of the flyback into the back of your tube. So I was like, well, if that's what it looks like, I could easily pull this off, cut the cable back right here, reinstall that, but I need to first cut the cable back here and work all that BS through this, which is like going like, it's like birthing something. It's like such a tight squeeze, dude. It took me like another 45 minutes to squeeze that through that freaking old anode cap without ripping it. But yeah, so there it is. I remove it. And there it was. Oh, yeah. I had to fish that and slowly pull it without ripping anything else. I pull it all the way through, expose the wire. And you know what? At this point, you can see I've cut the wire back. I cut the wire like an inch further than I really should have. And I started to fix it, Zez, and I was like, oh, man, I'm going to fix this thing, and I've already fucked it. I'm too short. And so I was worried about the whole time as I'm working on it now. So anyway, there it is. You can see here I have it held in the place. I've reattached the cable. I've got it soldered on there better than it was before, recrimped it. I've got this, you can see I've flattened out that ring and got it reinstalled in here. And I'm like, holy shit, this may actually work. And then I had to go through the painful process of getting that anode cap back onto there, like pulled over that hood. I had to get it pulled over all that, which is not as easy as it sounds. And finally had it back to looking like a perfectly normal, capable anode, right? I mean, you wouldn't even know it even happened from that. It's beautiful. It's like, it's almost giving me like an erection here. It makes me so happy. Sorry to creep anybody out there. Okay, so that's just the first thing I had to do. And then I get in here and I'm like, look at this damn mess. Look at this mess of connected wires between these boards. So I had to sit there and I had to make these with tape and paper, and I had to label every single one of these jumper cables. There were like 20 of them soldered into these 3 boards all together. So I had to desolder every single one of those.
Not very repairable. That's what
I had to
taking away
desolder every single one of those. And that's what I'm saying. The other guy didn't do all this shit. For sure, no way.
That's just how they are. That's just
because they didn't take all this time. They would, because you could tell by the way they looked, their work looked. They just were trying to do it as quickly as possible. So there it is. I got the shielding off. I'm inspecting around more. I could tell, I'm like, damn, man, somebody came in here and somehow recapped this whole thing. I don't know what they did. I don't know how they got it out. They definitely didn't do what I did the safe way. So it looks pretty clean up here on this side, but this side just looks like a mess. I have to.
So
oh, here's another.
Replace all those caps?
No, they were already replaced. So I just checked them. They were pretty good. I mean, they weren't the greatest, but they were better than, like, I wouldn't go and replace them now. They were all Nishikon. Some they were low. They were like 85-degree temp caps. A lot of them. Some of them were 105. But this is just what the board looked like. I kept finding, like, you know, cold solder joints developing and stuff randomly. Over here looks shoddy. And what's that? Look at this spot. Looked awful. I was like, what the heck's going on under there? Oh, and then I started looking. I said, well, no wonder. These things had sleeves over them. If we go back over here, these are ICs. These are the main ICs on this heatsink, but there's these two bigger ones floating over here. They're right here in this picture. See how they just have like these rubbers on them? So, after all this, I'm like, I don't know what the heck's wrong with this thing. I pull those rubber sleeves off there when I'm doing my inspection, and I find that these have been manhandled, and boom, broken.
Yep.
Boom, broken. So I'm like, oh, well, that's definitely not going to work if those are broken. Oh, here's the bridge, right? Look at that.
Oh, yep.
I found a solder bridge on here, and I was like, well, that's not supposed to be bridged.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Ray Charles could see that. Like, it's not microscopic.
I mean, right, guys? Come on, check your work. Check what's going on. Anyway, so look at this. This is what I tried to do so I could start testing this board. Look at that. I was like, well, I can't exactly pull this. I could pull a cap out or a resistor, but I can't really find these things. So I'm trying my best to repair these guys. And here's a repair on this one. Not easy. Not easy. But I was like, well, that'll get me to the point where I could test it. So I fix all the bad work. This is what it looks like after I serviced it. The same board. These are all those points you saw. I had to go back and, reflow solder. There was some stuff testing shoddy on here. I didn't really understand. I had some, like, stuff that I was trying to test. This is my test results where I was, like, checking different things I thought was bad. I got to these weird resistors on here. I couldn't figure it out. And then this is where I got into some trouble. I found a copy of the service manual for this monitor, right? Someone actually went through and put a whole nice service manual for it. All this documentation, which I have pulled up here, which I'm just skimming through. But the problem is it gets into the parts listing. There's no, like, parts listing for it. All there is schematics that have the individual parts. You can see them right here listed on them. This is a schematic for one of the boards. It's like the input board, the IO board, okay? The problem is somebody didn't scan all the paperwork on it. And that's the only documented copy online. So there's no schematic, no parts list, nothing for the entire power supply unit, which I was like, man, I don't think this is fixable, right? So I'm like looking, I'm trying to figure out what the exact rating is on these parts just by looking at the parts with my old man eyes. I'm having to take pictures, blow these pictures up, ask what the colors are. I finally figure them out. I think everything's fine on there. I move on. This is just these other boards. And again, I'm finding shit like this. Cold solder joints on these high voltage points. I had to go in and guys, this is what, like, I feel comfortable testing some shit when it looks like this, right? Like, this is the way I like to leave a board after I work on it. Then it's much easier. You're like, well, what's my problem? What can I could test things clearly. I could see everything. So anyway, that's just my pet peeve.
Randy in the chat, like, we don't need to get into the specifics, but let's say rounded to the closest $1,000 mark, how much overall do you think you've spent on this set to buy it, to ship it, Steve, the whole thing?
Well,
give us some indication.
I mean, this was an expensive repair.
Right, because he said that he spent a pretty penny to buy it in the first place. And there's the shipping, and it's not just what Steve did. No doubt you did a lot of work on it as well. Like, give us.
Randy can say whatever he wants to on it.
Sure.
Here,
exactly.
Whatever he's comfortable, he'll put it in the chat. So, and again, guys, this is just like one board. This is just the first board I've gotten at a detail looked at, and I've moved on to these other two boards, and I have not touched the neck board. And unfortunately, the neck board had a giant piece of shielding on it, so you had to desolder that just to inspect it. So anyway, I'm like, well, the good God, at this point, I've got everything ready. I can at least try to turn this thing on and test it. Of course.
Do you remember how many hours approximately you're into at this stage?
Well, I remember talking to Randy and I was like, man, I need a deposit just to do this section of the work. And I don't guarantee, and I guarantee that I don't have any guarantees that it's going to fix it. $4,000, he said, is in it, which actually that's a lot, but to have it like finally, if it's working and good, you'll easily at this point now, every board you're going to see by the end of it looks like what you see there. And like, it's all, unfortunately, this is still like a hot rod or a car. You never freaking know. I hate these kind of things because again, you could work on it 100 hours, have it working perfectly and still never know what the hell could just stop one day because it's so rare and old. But I gave it the best shot I could. Right.
It's not like, oh, Randy dropped $4,000 and got a set. It's like Randy gambled $4,000 and got a great set.
Well, he did. That's what I was saying. He would have only been in like $1,500 less than, if I only had him put down a certain amount and I was like, we'll get to that point. We'll reevaluate if I think I can fix it. Right. And then you can invest the rest of the money. And we'll see what happens.
You're keeping good communications with your client, making sure updated so they can make good decisions along the way. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what we've done, again, all the work you've seen so far, I get in here and I start screwing around with trying to get the old fuse out. And man, again, it's like Pandora's box. Everything you touch crumbles. Okay. There's my installed anode cap. I'm thankful because look how short the cable is.
Oh yeah, it's just exactly
it's perfect. Right. It's perfect the way it is, but yeah, it couldn't take much shorter. Yeah. So, and not work with it, not be workable. So, of course, I get everything ready. I was just showing that I had there were grounds. I like to keep all the ground loops going in the CRT. That's what you see over here. See these? These are just jumper wires I've installed that are normally screwed into the frame just to keep the ground loop going. Because believe it or not, some of these monitors, if you don't have certain ground loops connected, they just won't power on. So just a tip there again. So I start to screw around and here's where the fuse holder is. And I open it. I'm like, I'm ready to test. And wouldn't you know it, the damn fuse holder splits into 1,000 pieces and falls apart on me. And I'm like, son of a biscuit. What am I every time I touch something on this, it just crumbles. So that right there adds another couple hours of work. So here's what I had. I had this fuse. I had to go special buy this fuse. There's the old fuse piece. And I'm like, well, that's no good anymore. I want to test the monitor. What can I do? Well, I can test it. All right. So here's the end of, I guess, that folder file. So let me see here. Let me open the other file, which is, so at that point, what had happened? I'm going to show you, yes, what I did. because this was about the time I was about to follow up with Randy for the first time. So here's what I had to do, right? I had to take the two ends of the fuse box ripped out, and then I had to solder each end to a fuse just to get a test. I had to put heat shrink tubing on everything and electrical tape, because God bless me if I decided to just be a dummy and just not do that and have those live high voltage, AC 120 volt main come in and ground out against the monitor and catch my house on fire. So you have to go to all those precautions to safely insulate the fuse just to test it. So there it is.
Absolutely. You gotta look like some Oppenheimer shit if you don't do that correctly. Boom! The whole shed's gonna go up. God damn.
So the problem was also, Lewis, every time I moved to this board, these repairs would split on these ICs.
Okay.
So I kept having to resolder them. When they were in place,
Those
resolder
ICs,
them.
are they just rare, those ICs? Like
No,
you can't get
but
replacements?
I ordered them, and it was like they will be delivered in 1 week. And so I'm like, well, while I'm waiting, I'll test to see if I have any improvement. And there it is, set up. Let me see. Do I have it set up? Yeah, set up my final picture. Oh, well, there it is going. So, oh, no. So, man, where's the other files? Somehow I missed those files. Let me go back here and see if I can't find that. What had happened here? Where's the files? So, I thought I had gotten to that point, and so I must have skipped ahead. Where's the pictures? Sorry, I'm just talking to myself. Right, so I'm not to that point. I kind of skipped ahead. Maybe I must have just, now I do have videos. This is how many video clips I have of this. So just tons of videos of it. And so what I had happen, I'll save that and we'll just kind of talk through it back at that picture. So at the very end of this last picture where it shows this, let's go back to this. Oh, there it is. I don't know how, these pictures, I must have skipped this somehow. Right, this is one. All right, everybody. So this is what happened. What you saw the second time was my second time of insulating it. Okay, this was my first test. I tested it and it immediately exploded.
But hold on. What are we looking at here?
So what happened is I set it up right before this it was set up. Like I had it put together where I had soldered that into place, and I had footage of this. But I lost the footage. So what I've done is...
fuse is like a fuse for 110 volts, is it?
No, it's 250. It's 250 volt fuse. And I plugged the fuse in. I soldered it into place. And then I taped it all up. I set up the monitor. And when I turned it on, it immediately popped. And then I took it apart and it popped so hard it blew in half.
Oh,
that's what you see. That's one half.
Like it's not meant to be there.
No, that's one half.
Oh, okay.
That out of focus bit is the lens or the glass from the fuse. Okay.
Now I see that.
So that I didn't have good pictures of the before right there. That's what I missed. So there's the fuse that's blowing. And I'm like, well, shit, the fuse blew. So that means that something's still wrong here. So I'm like, we're back to kind of. I don't know what happened. So what I've got going on now is I'm talking to Randy and I'm like, Randy, we're kind of at the tipping point here where we're either going to move on and invest more money. I kept calling it the CRT money pit. I was like, we're going to invest more money and time into this and maybe fix it or not. I don't know. And he's like, yeah, go for it. It's already there. I want it. And so what I had done then was, I think the only thing, there were 2 resistors in, let me go back and just recover one thing on the first picture file. When I showed this, right here, when I showed this, there were these two resistors, 926 and 927. And then these were the two that I had repaired, the two transistors right there that I wrote damaged. Okay. It was just process of elimination, process of testing things that I found these two. They were supposed to be the same. They were reading crazy on the ohms. So I found out they were supposed to be a certain reading. It's like 100K ohm resistor. So I found that out by troubleshooting them, removing them from the board, going by the color guide, and I replaced them. So that was two parts that I had replaced, but I still had the problem, okay? But I do think those were part of the issue, okay? So you have those two resistors, and then we also had that bridge that I showed. We talked about Ray Charles Bridge over there. And then I also had 2 or 3 really severe cold solder joints. So it's hard to say what exactly one thing was the problem. And the anode cap. So all that, though, I had corrected. And so I get the parts in. The ICs. I got the ICs in. They got delivered. That I told you. I tried.
Those weird
These two transistors right here.
Yeah, okay, these transistors.
I got replacements delivered finally after a week. And these were expensive, man. These were $15 a piece. Okay? And I needed 2 of them. So just to test it, I had to buy these and test, just to get to this thing to test again. So there's those resistors that were bad. You can see how close they are to those parts. And they were in the direct path. And like I checked the diodes, they were good. Checked all these capacitors. Everything else was fine. It was literally those 2 resistors. These 2 had been replaced then, and then all the other work we had said. So I was like, well, son of a biscuit, here's time. Then I had to go through and do that whole silly thing. This is my second time of doing the insulating another fuse. And Lewis, these fuses were $6 a piece. So I had to test this fuse by doing all this work again to get the fuse ready, and then finally install those, and there it is, all pieced back together. And I was like, there's no freaking way this is gonna work. And I'm just like crying, like too nervous to press the power on button. And I mean, I had filmed everything. This is me finally checking, and then boom, I hit it, and I'm like, my gosh, what just happened? What just happened? It actually turns on. And I'm like crapping myself because I see this screen.
Right, nothing's blowing. You see a screen. That means your anode cap work. That means all the repairs have worked. You see something.
Yeah, and it says analog 1. So it's like showing me info. It's not just like a blue shorted tube.
Yeah, a steady image, right? You're actually seeing, even if it's on the screen display, it's a steady image.
But, of course, then I start trying to press buttons on the front, and I mean, it's not doing anything. I'm like, shit, no, right? What's next? So but it's analog 1, mode 1. So I actually insert, what I've inserted here is RGB through SCART, and it's C-Sync. So I got a C-Sync SCART cable, turn it on, and boom, I have an image. But I have locked on this analog mode 1 on the screen.
You can't change the input. Okay.
I can't do, none of these buttons are doing anything except the main power button over here. So it's like locked out. So I'm looking around some more. What I've got to get back to a picture of the back here. Hang on. So let me go back and find, because I probably, some of this stuff is going to be just not me. Let me find a good picture of what I had to do next. Okay. Yeah. All right. So a little lower. I don't want to spoil things too much. I got to go over a few more. Skip ahead. So, oh, gosh, of course I did get a picture of it there. Let me. Okay, finally got a picture of this thing. It's deep. I don't want to skip through everything, so I didn't want to miss it. We'll go back to this one. This is the input-output board. So if you'll notice up here, there is a switch. This is a 3-position switch.
Right. How did you know about this? Like,
I just looked on the back. I'm looking on the back at the input-output board. And I'm like, why isn't this thing responding? I'm looking at this I/O board, and I see this. Oops, sorry. I see this switch up here. This switch, which is 3 positions again. So I'm like, well, what the heck does that switch do? So what I just did was, like I just told you at the beginning of going through these pictures, I went and looked at my pictures. And somehow in moving everything, this switch had been moved from the position of 2 over to 3. And I was like, okay. So I switched it back over to 2. And it was like the hallelujah moment, Lewis. Because once I switched it back over to 2, I was granted full control over the CRT. All the buttons worked. The analog mode went away, and it was working normally. So
that switch. What is that switch? What is it designed for?
I don't know. It's like a lockout mode. There was a couple switches inside of it. That's what I'm telling you, man. I'm like the frickin' I'm like the Sherlock Holmes of CRTs.
It is. Like, I wonder, like, the purpose of that switch. Was there, someone's going to open that up, switch that so it deliberately couldn't be used from the outside? Some sort of a...
Yeah, right. Something, service switch, something. So there was that. I figured that out. I got it unlocked, and I'm like, dude, this thing works now. I'm like, man, this thing is working. I'm talking to Randy, and I'm like, dude, I got it working. I'm so happy. I said, but the rest of this, there's still like 6 other boards in this that I haven't gone through, Okay. I'm like, so if you want to, you have the option of me stopping right now, or I can go through the rest of the boards and spend another, hours. And so he said he wanted me to go through everything on it. So
at this stage, do you still see issues, or
no? I mean, at this stage, it's working, right?
It's working. Okay.
Like, I'm not seeing the only issue I found on it was that with the audio, it has onboard speakers, and for some reason, I could never get the speakers to come out of one side. Like, I don't know if the speaker was blown. I tried everything to try to test, but even when I would, I don't know. Like, that was the only thing I told him I couldn't figure out. And there's so much going on. It's like a full analog system with some obvious, modes and boards in it, but a lot of the stuff's done analog. And there's like some jumpers installed. And I said, I don't know. The best thing to do is just skip the audio because it's probably not even that great anyway, So I said, run it externally for audio. It may also have been an issue with my setup I was feeding in there. But anyway, that was the only issue. So this was the other boards that I had to go through in service. As you could tell, this is the shield that was on the neck board. So I had to take everything back out, get this neck board back out. This is what it looked like. And I mean, the problem again is why service that other stuff when you're coming into problems over here. Like these solder joints were going really bad on the neck. This is high voltage, high heat. That's where the CRT socket. So yeah, this is just like there's what it looks like afterwards, right? You have it. There's the before, and there's the after. Like,
oh, somebody said I'm getting a boner. Like,
yeah, like that's really. So that's what it looks like after, right? Cleared up, everything is.
That luminous green is back again.
Yeah, cleaned up.
Brown. Yeah.
Checked everything, verified that everything was good for parts. Oh, and I finally ordered a replacement fuse holder, which I've installed here. A nice marine for your boat.
Oh, it's waterproof. Great.
Waterproof. So if you throw your CRT in the water, it won't bother the fuse. Maybe the rest of it. And So there's the fuse holder installed, new fuse holder. And there we go. Have glorious
Good.
37
And
inch.
how is the picture image, general image that just sort of come up good?
Oh, it's great.
More adjustments?
Oh, no. So here's like just me testing the inputs. Here's what the image looked like. Pretty much, this is untouched.
Pretty much smack on.
So here's the thing. This does have a full remote. There are buttons that will let you do some adjustment. They'll let you do vertical size, vertical center, horizontal size, horizontal center, and that's pretty much it. There's a little bit of maybe linearity and purity controls, but nothing else. To do the other stuff,
but you'd have to be picky.
To do the other stuff, you'd have to use the remote. But honestly, I was no, he didn't have it. But honestly, I was looking at it and I was like, this is so damn good for a 37 inch. Like, all you do is center the image and there's nothing to worry about. I went in and I tightened up the convergence and the focus. This is actually kind of before that, but you could still see it's got a really good image. Very linear. I mean, that linearity is pretty damn good for something that big. There's the colors too. I mean, the colors like balanced. I was looking at this and I was like, well, that is actually like, that's what you want to see on something like this. This is perfection for this level of a CRT to have this kind of color balance on here. White balance to me.
That is great.
There's the tube just flying.
Whole new world of pain.
Oh my gosh, right?
If the colors were off, if a gun wasn't working correctly, anything could have happened past this.
I know. So there it is. This one was stressful too, because then I had to go through, remove all these boards individually. And again, I'm just finding shoddy craftsman.
Is that a factory bodge?
I have no idea because it's going into a spot here. And what the thing I found out on this board, the guy or gal, whoever worked on this, they didn't remove this from, I figured out that they didn't remove this from the CRT. What they did was they tried to go in here and heat up the capacitors from this side and pull them through, send them back in this side. And I mean, they destroyed a lot of it. Like, I came in here this side, I'm like, what the heck? Why does it look like this? I figured it out. And I think they had to eventually get it out somehow and like fix some of these traces that they tore up. Because I was like, dude.
Randy asked in the chat, how do you clean that PCB? How do you make it look so nice?
So after, like, I look at all this is what I'm finding here. I'm like, what the heck? At this point, what I do to get it looking like this is I literally just use isopropyl alcohol and a toothbrush. Okay. And I just brush in circular patterns slowly over and over again. And then I have a big beach towel under it that just catches all the crap. And that's how I do it. And it takes about a quarter of a bottle. And then you let it dry, do it again, let it dry, do it again. And you can see the brush I use to clean the... I just use this.
There it is. Yeah. Okay.
That's the other brush I use to clean the top side. And I use compressed air with an air compressor. This is what it looks like after. You can see how much better. Right?
Like that, I would even call that retro PCB green. I don't know how much about PCB
generation. You got the color back, right? So these are important. These are the back sides of the connection points, which can wear out on CRTs, right? Because you're plugging things in and out, bending it, putting pressure on those points. Another important point are all these connection points on the side that connect to other points of the monitor. Cables come in. There you go. You see how that's... And actually, I have multiple... My soldering iron is so badass. I have multiple tips. Look at this. Real quickly. I have...
Well, Randy just explained how he pays for all this. He's a dentist.
Yeah, like there he goes. I have 3 or 4... I have literally 3 separate... Look at this stuff. 3 separate... It's like, there you go for a dentist. These are my dental tools. So you're like, I have ones for different applications for these go into my one single soldering iron over here. So I have different, and this one. So there's 4 options. Edward Scissorhands or Edward Solder Fingers.
Open up and say,
So there's like, that's how you get around and like do that the right way. You just pop these suckers in. And
can we, you promised we would be able to look at the inputs.
yes, it's finally getting to that because we're about to be the final of these. Good time to get over that. So let's go. And so again, it's all working right. I got all that board done. There's another board that I had to go in and do. And again, did the same thing as I did with every one of them. It's an audio board. This is the dual deflection board. There's some more stuff that I just before. I know I'm breezing through this. It's the same thing though, pretty much. This one also had another 3-position switch in it. This was an interesting point right here, Zez. So I got to this point.
Yeah, dig in.
You see this? This was on the deflection board, and I'm looking at this, and I was really concerned because I reflowed solder on it.
Make that full screen. That's
oh, sorry. Is it just the... Okay, yes, sorry. Thank you for saying that. Okay. So this is like the PCB after I've serviced it. And before I plug it back in, I'm like, dang, look at this little section. I'm checking my work. I'm like, look at this little section. I don't know if these points are supposed to be, I mean, they're close, so damn close. You think, why would they design a board if they're not supposed to be bridged? But then I look up here and I'm like, well, I kept these unbridged. I mean, that's obviously unbridged. Same thing down here, unbridged. But I'm like, what about these other 3 points on here? I'm like stressing. But again, this is where I was able to go back and look at my before pictures and verify that these were bridged in the before. All 3 of those points were, the 3 points were not. So that just puts my mind at ease. Every other one, again, like, since I use such fine tip solder stuff, I could reflow without bridging them. But there are some that you cannot because they're designed to be bridged. So that's how I figured that out. That's a little sneak thing there.
And that's very tough. If you don't have those schematics, you don't have that.
Right. You don't have schematics. You're literally just going by that. So, every time you got to say 500 Hail Marys and boom, it's back working if you test it. There's the inputs. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So this is the shield you put back over that. It's got an analog video here, input, 2 regular. The top one is switchable between S video right in there. And then obviously composite video, which this is awesome because you can go in through either straight up RCA or BNC, right?
BNC, sure.
But I think the BNC actually, no, that's output. I apologize. That's output.
Right,
so you have to go output,
75.
and it's got built-in switch here for termination. If you're using an external device and you have it hooked up into this, you're going to turn your termination on to high, and then you would terminate it on the end device, like whatever this is connecting to needs to be terminated.
Right, so that's where maybe you've got to use them on BVMs if someone has, and you've got to put those special terminator things over the output on the BVM to make that work.
Exactly.
Now, but go back. Actually, I'm curious though. The S video input.
Yes.
SVHS or normal.
Yeah.
What's that difference?
So the weird thing is, what I figured out was this was the switch that selected between the 2 inputs here. So like if you leave it in normal, which is weird, they put that on the bottom. But if you leave it in normal, it's turned on this. Because I didn't know what that meant either, right? I was like, is it going to be auto-selecting? So what it does is if you have, if you're using this input up here, then you would have it on normal. And then when you switch over to SVHS, it turns it to this input.
Right.
Because they share, if you go over here, they actually share the exact same analog 1 left and right audio channel. And then this is audio 2, and this is and analog are these 2 inputs. or all three of these audios connect to these three inputs over here, which is the other three inputs.
So
Which this could take some
480p.
pretty, yeah, I believe so, but I don't know. External source right here is not going to be an input, right? It's probably some kind of communication with the CRT.
Right, some sort of external box. Like
Over here, we have some kind of analog adapter, which I'm sure will take some 3 or 4 versions of RGB, right? If you have the actual adapter, but I don't have it. TTL,
it's not common, but it's not crazy uncommon.
Right.
RGB connector like that.
No, it's not, and it's something, right? They made for that reason.
Well,
I don't know, right? It's going to be something with TTL sync or TTL signals, which I am very nervous about doing anything with that input because I don't want to again do all this shit, stick something in there that's finicky and does damage to the CRT. So I'm going to be honest with you. I'll leave this up to Randy if he wants to experiment with that.
Because if you look at the analog, where it's labeled analog 2, there is enough pins there for like red and ground, blue and ground, green and ground, sync and ground. There's enough pins there, and then to have like sync and all that shit over analog 2.
You can have both syncs, high and low.
So what does and HMV, as you so rightly say down there. So maybe someone in the chat knows, why would TTL be a separate plug there? What does that mean? And here's your probably.
And then here's your main analog one that you could do pretty much anything, right? With it doesn't have component, but it does RGB. And if you leave it the way it's set up now, you just literally, the CS is for composite sync, and you have that switch to the very far right that says normal. If you want to go sync on green, obviously you switch that to SG. Right there.
Oh, okay. That's sync on green or regular sync. Okay.
Or regular, whatever, C-Sync, or I guess it's C-Sync. That's the cable I was using. Then I have not tested HD. I could actually run what I'll probably try. I'm going to try some stuff with I'm going to try some stuff with the Dreamcast, and I've got a VGA cable and a SCART cable, so I could run it through to a Extron device and then split that Extron device out and kind of mess around a little bit with resolutions that way too, and verify what's going into the monitor and what it's actually showing, through old equipment.
While you were talking about that, that reminded me of something you were talking about. Hey, it has RGB input and doesn't have component input. And I wanted to link into the chat. I watched a video this week that was great and really helped educate me about the technicals of RGB and component video. And I'm going to link it now. It's from Matty's TV Barn. Maybe some people.
Oh, nice. Never heard of that. It's cool.
Creator. So he's a British guy, and he's a former, or maybe current, I don't know, former like professional video guy, but working in broadcast video, not just video games and that sort of stuff. And he's really very knowledgeable about broadcast video, so all the PAL, all the NTSC, all the standards, but he talks particularly how it relates to broadcast video, and he mathematically explains how RGB can be converted to component, and component can be converted back to RGB. And it's just maths. And if there is a difference between them, it's basically a rounding error, that you're not using enough digits. Like, that would be the only reason why those two would not be functionally the same. So I've linked that in the chat. It was a very interesting video. And he talks very much about how in broadcast video, they worked mainly in composite because the RGB stuff was like so expensive and so much more and so many more plugs, and very, very fascinating video. So for all the homeboys out there, like the RGB's better or the components better, there's like mathematical proof in this video that they are exactly the same, and you can move between them. So
interesting.
Now, Edward's in there. TTL, you don't have to attenuate the sync line.
Yeah, bring that over here. Let's see.
Oh boy, I think I'm on my 3rd beer, so I cannot understand what Edward said. But it's true, I'm sure.
Let's see. Let's pull Edward's comment over here because I'm so high tech. I'm like clicking on the wrong screens and stuff, or where this thing goes. The corona's hiding in your face. Let's get the says box going. So it says in
You don't have to
TTL
continue with the sync line, which is say voltage
between 0.22 volts
Right.
and 0.9. So TTL, you can input the sync signal unattended to 5 volts, which sounds right. And then I'm wondering, like, if something happens, if you have like a TTL situation where you're accepting TTL, I don't know whether if you're like, there's
So
still,
as I understand, maybe Edward can help. TTL means that your sync can just be up to 5 volts. It can be like, there's quite a large range of that. Where with consumer equipment, your TTL cannot go up to your sync cannot go up to 5 volts. It's got to be limited, and that's why often we put this 480 ohm resistor on the sync line when we're doing consumer RGB stuff. So what it's trying to, I guess, in my stupid layman terms, is TTL means professional level shit that can take a higher range of voltage on that line and doesn't need a resistor and doesn't need to be attenuated.
Okay, yeah, but still, like, because there's some of these something puts out like something in retro gaming. It's super guns and certain arcade boards will shoot out a spike voltage on the sync line, and that's what we're talking about here. It sends out this unsafe high voltage, and it might even spike past 5 volts, is what I'm thinking, and blows out the sync and even professional monitors. So that's what that's what you got to be concerned with in this stuff. Is obviously if you're sending in a TTL sync that you know is attenuated and into the TTL, it's probably not a problem. It just means the TTL could take a higher voltage probably on the sync without destroying it.
Right, as Edward puts in the chat.
Yeah.
TTL can go up to like 5, and your consumer equipment can't take 5 on the sync line.
And this is why you'll have certain monitors, or somebody puts something in and they're playing it one day, and then all of a sudden the vertical sync goes, and it never comes back.
The question to me is why would there be a difference then? Is it that if we have, rather than using, I don't know, 1.7 volts or something as the spectrum of sync, it can go between 0 and 1.7 volts. Is it if it can go between 1 and 5 volts, does that provide more granularity? Because
I don't know.
The higher amount, like why? Maybe Edward can edge it. Why? What's the advantage to going up to 5 volts?
I'm wondering too. I'm wondering if it doesn't have something to do with trying to keep like the stability of your sync signal over longer period, like longer distances maybe, or if you have that sync line connected to a lot of devices. This is again just theory speak, but you know, like if you're in a broadcasting environment and you're keeping every sync connected, if you're keeping all your syncs connected, maybe there's a thought there that they need some extra voltage to keep it stable, or like if you're I don't know.
This gave me the thought that we need to get this Matty on, the guy whose video.
Yeah, probably so.
I'm going to reach out to him and ask him, would he like to come on a stream and answer?
That's a good idea. We haven't had a guest in a while. All right, so
he's in arcade. Yes, sir.
What's up, everybody? Yeah, so that's kind of the end of that. I will have I have a full video like of me going through and actually doing this stuff, troubleshooting it, because what I did figure out was before I installed the new ICs, and I had the old ICs, there were a bunch of weird points that were shorting together, right? And so when I removed the 2 broken ICs or transistors that I replaced on that power supply, I started to test them individually, and I found that one of the 2 was completely shorted. So it had been bridged where it was literally just everything was shorted. Every leg was shorted together, and it was not supposed to be that way. So I knew that I had found a shorted part that it was like, well, this could be the problem. So then this is a way you troubleshoot. So when I had that shorted part in the board, I would put my multimeter on the ground, and then I'd click the probes of that part, and it would be bing, bing, because it's shorted to ground. It's one big loop where it's not supposed to be. So by removing those ICs. Then I tested the board again with them out of circuit. That's the only parts. And all of a sudden, it's not shorted anymore, right? You test it, it doesn't make noise. So you're like, wow, I've actually removed the shorted part. So if it's supposed to be shorted, then blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I get the new parts in, I test them, compare them to the old ones, and it was obvious that one of them is shorted, one of them wasn't shorted, but they were both broken. So then I replaced them. Everything else had been fixed. So that's why it powered on.
So for you now, do you consider the set done? Is it done and ready to
Yeah,
go back to Randy?
it's been put back together. I've done all the work I'm going to do with it. I'm going to film a little bit more again on it of just me showing it at the end.
Okay. Randy's going to send these guys.
Yeah, he's got to send two guys by this weekend, he says. He's got to send two dudes to come here and break their back. But that was my other thought. You saw the solder quality on a lot of those boards. If I would have not gone and touched that up on those other half a dozen boards, if you're driving this, you're moving this thing from here, driving it all the way up to where it's going, it's very easy for just like a speed bump, a pothole, to shift, hit, knock a solder joint loose, and then you've done all that work and it's not going to be any good. So that's the argument, to be able to go in and say, yes, I want all that protective work preventively done.
Right, and at the very least, he's got his guys coming. It's not being shipped by some other.
No, definitely not. No, it would be. It's like, U-ship style. Like, this guy's got movers who've come. His own personal guy who comes and does it for him. Kind of gone over a little longer. I know Bob's got his stream going. Maybe we'll save the other stuff for next time, if that's all right.
Yeah, what's going on in Bob's stream?
I have no idea.
Can we bomb it? Like, is there something we can do to fuck up Bob's stream?
Bomb it.
How that would work.
What do you guys want to go say over there?
I don't know.
How many people? No, yeah, go in there and just, I don't know. Put a go drop a pickle. Go drop a pickle in his chat. A horse.
I don't see it. No, I don't see it. There's nothing playing on Bob's channel. I'm looking right now. He's scared. Bob's scared.
He's waiting for us. Come on, he's waiting for us. There's only like 35 people in here right now, so it's not like 100 people are in here. All right, yeah. So I mean, like, what do you got going on? You want to check out now?
Yeah,
check out the gals.
My partner has some friends over, so pretty good.
Okay.
We've covered for the kids, so I don't have to run away too quickly. We're good right now. Yeah, man. But this is it's been so insightful to see you, and I love the way you document when you're doing the work. We document things on the streams, and then there's gonna be the video that comes out as well. So much of this stuff is worked through. And are you a little sad to see this set go? Or
No. Are you kidding? I want it out of here. I mean, my thought is always like, get it out of here before something else happens, right? Now I'm gonna be worried that like the roof will fall in and just randomly, for some reason, collapse on it. So no,
you've got plenty more. So
I've got tons more. Yeah.
How do people contact you? How do people organize this?
So, guys, if you're not a member already, there's the Patreon, which is linked in the description of this video. You go check that out. That's the only way you can get me to work on your stuff. And that's it. That's all there is to it anymore. And that's really the best thing I would recommend. Now, if you don't have a CRT to service or you live in the Northeast, here's your ample warning to come to the CRT Roadshow that's going to be at the Retro World Expo. So the second weekend, September like 14th, I believe, I will have a 1 hour time block to do my CRT stand-up routine, where you'll get to see me survive or not survive live in person. Ask your questions, be part of the crowd. It's a fun experience. I'm real excited, but that's going to be the awesome thing to actually come if you're not, getting a CRT service and you want to see something awesome.
Retro World happening.
Retro World Expo. This is the only one I'm doing. Only one I'm doing in 2025 that I know of for sure. And
are you thinking again? It's going to end up where you're taking the van.
I'm going to take something because, man, I have a ton of CRTs to get rid of.
It's a great place to I would imagine like you want to contact Steve. It's a great place to drop
I'm
off.
gonna
your CRT.
have
It's a great place to buy something from Steve.
I have quite a few CRTs I'm bringing to that have been refreshed, restored, all different levels of that, all different levels of CRTs, starting at ones that are probably going to be pretty basic consumer CRTs that have been looked at and cleaned up and done for like 100, all the way up to the 4-figure beautiful restored professional monitors. And I've even got like,
hey, are you a dentist? Okay, then
yeah.
come to the okay, yeah.
And then we've got quite a few, you know, here's another thing that we haven't even scratched the surface on. When we were talking about the tariffs and everything, I went and straight up ordered the raw materials to do 50 RGB kits on CRTs here. Like I bought the straight up boards.
The kits, yeah. Okay.
Like I've got the raw boards, I've got the I've got the sockets on both ends. I've got all the components here. So my plan is to take them. I keep finding CRTs on the street, take them, get them to whatever level I can and whatever I can fit. And then I'll get them out there.
I mean, your work, we've spoken previously that, but you are a true patriot who is doing service work here in America. So you're not so much impacted by these tariffs, but the little that you might possibly be, you know, you went and bought all those RGB kits, and then sitting next to us in our chat is, you know, Mike Chief from Retro Team.
Yeah, right.
His whole business is being destroyed by tariffs, and Steve's like, I've got my Mux kits.
Yeah, like I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm like, yeah, that's when I came out. And I was like, don't worry, guys. I can take care of the tariffs on the CRT service. And there's literally the only thing that comes from China for my stuff is like SCART sockets and like plugs for the cable connections, like the real low end stuff. And so I was like, well, I can order 1,000 of those now for $10 or wait till they're like $30 for the 1,000. But either way, I'm like, that doesn't really that big. But then like, yeah, one item, I'm like, now if people are like, can I send you something? I'm like, I don't know. Like Edward with these cables, I mean, I didn't want to say anything, but I didn't want somebody to come and say, I don't know what the hell's happening. I don't know, but they just say, oh, here's $100 tariff on a cable that you're trying to get, right? I mean, that's what's literally happening.
Edward's cables?
Well, I know that like he's making them in Albania, but I don't know what the chain of command is. Are they like, hey, are they like, did this capacitor come from China? Did that solder come from China that you used? And you're like, what the heck? Who knows how far they're looking at this stuff? But I was like, I'm not, like you said, I wanted to make sure. I was worried about just the fact of these people getting discouraged, not making their products anymore. Kind of like Mike Chi. Like I'm waiting for him to unveil some of the new stuff he's got, but he cannot. Right, because it sucks.
So actually explain this, because Edward's here in the chat as well. Edward's just said, no tariff for Albania. Like, like he's holding up a fucking sign or something. Like,
yeah,
no
it's like,
tariff for Albania, no tariff for Albania. So why
thank
is
you,
that? Did Albania make a deal with Trump? Did you give
I
him a
guess
plane
probably
or
so.
like,
I mean, like, right? If there's no Albanian tariff, then you could buy cables from Edward in America.
They were the first ones handing over the gold to Trump.
Right.
Okay,
well, that's, I mean, there's trade deals, but there's still going to be like a 10% tariff, I think, on everybody for here. I don't know what it is, obviously.
So did you?
But there are parts that I have to get.
Right.
That are getting affected.
Cables to you. Did you have to pay anything, or how did that work?
No, it was just a shipped-in thing, which I don't know if there's still obviously that de minimis. It's been shrunk. This may have been able to say it's under that de minimis amount. I don't know. It used to be like $800, which is a huge amount. Now it's probably down to like 20 or 40 or something. So yeah, I don't like a lot of little small stuff, right? That's what I thought. I was like, his is probably too small. He's not really sending me an order. It's not got like an invoice. It's like a product sample. But I know that if you are making something, I've already watched like the best documentary I saw was the one done by Gamers Nexus about a month ago, where he went around and talked to like 15 PC manufacturers, and they're like, you don't understand, we got a component list for an item that has 25 components, and they're literally going in and checking where every one of those single components comes from. And those components individually are getting hit with these exorbitant tariffs. And that's why it's making a lot of things that are made in the U.S. Like, people don't understand how many products are made in the U.S. right now that are so cheap. And they're just like made as like businesses make them to get their foot in the door of like higher end products. But it's like to the point now where, well, no one's good. People would pay $150 for that product, but there's no way they're going to pay $450 for that product, which is the new price of it based on the tariff and, blah. So it's not easy, obviously, for anybody.
Difficult. Very difficult.
So I don't know. I mean, that's the only thing. It's like, I feel very isolated for myself and my business, but it's a trickle-down effect where it's bad for the entire industry of tech altogether. That's not a good thing for me or my business in the long run altogether, I don't believe. So even though I can manage these things, I don't think it's a good...
You're a particular circumstance. You were very
Right. Service-oriented.
Service-focused. Okay, but that's not what most people are.
Right. Most of the people that are our friends that are in this, that are making products or a living, are very impacted by this stuff. So anyway.
So have you tested out the cables from Ed White yet, or what have you got? Are you still working on that?
No, I have not, because I haven't had anything. We could just, I can wheel this thing over real quick. It's right here.
We could do it next
It
time.
doesn't matter.
We can do it
Yeah,
now.
I hate to do it like now, so it's like,
Deep
we'll
in.
do it like,
maybe
no.
Let's make it the next stream.
Let's make it the next stream so we could test
We'll make
the
it like
cables.
the whole stream.
Yeah, that'll be the
cables and
main
shit.
thing.
Yeah, we'll do the whole thing. But the Dreamcast cable, is that like a 480i only one? or
Yeah,
is it
I
a
would
switch to
imagine
do-
so. Yeah, where
Has it got a
it's
switch on it? In which case
it says,
that's 480i.
it's 15 kilohertz. It says it on
Okay,
there,
15 kilohertz.
which is
That's what
fine.
I've got. I just got the 15 kilohertz one.
I just wanted a high quality one, and he asked which ones, and I was like, I don't actually have one of those. I have honestly, I have 4 of these SNES ones, but they've all about fallen apart on me. They're like beaten up. I've had them for so long, so I can always use that. And surprisingly, I did not have the Genesis 1 cable.
Okay.
So what I'll do
ass.
is next time we'll bring these in and we'll set them all up.
Let's do a whole.
We'll test them,
stream.
and then we'll open up the head, look at some cool things on the inside. And Edward, maybe you can, I don't know what your schedule is, but we could probably bring you on here if you have the ability to come on and talk to him too. So we'll think about that for the next one. I'll send you a message.
And you guys know I've ranted in our group chats so much about, look, I love that Edward is doing it, but what it means is there's a dude in Albania who is making cables and making inroads in the market, right? And I don't mean disrespect to Albania, but what I mean is that, how come no one in continental USA is doing this? And there is, but it seems they're all batshit crazy. They're all weird. And it's hard, or you've got to go to retro access, and it's are the cables coming for retro access?
Yeah.
Great reputation. Are the cables coming? We don't know. And how long is the lag time, for that to actual happen? And I was musing, how come there's not Edward of the United States, just a switched on young person who knows their electrical engineering and is putting it together and realizing that, if you want to buy from Retro Access, which somehow again still has the reputation as the most amazing cable manufacturer, which is quite perplexing to me. I'm not saying the cables aren't quality. I'm saying the quality of the service and the business that exists
all you have to do is
behind
go
that.
follow them on Twitter and you find out what we're talking about. There's like you said, it's just it's not anything except it's hard. It's hard to have, and again, it's not like I want, Lewis, you and I both want people to succeed, small business stuff. And it's just hard to have reliably say go there and have a good transaction with this person, and then somebody just has a problem and it just comes up. It obviously happens, but then you can't go and like act crazy sometimes online and then not say like, well, why, whatever. But
right, so all you have to do is, you would like a retro access cable. They certainly are high quality, but look, the proof is in that person's Twitter account. Just go and look at that shit.
well,
for a while.
and yeah, we're probably gonna catch somebody's gonna see this and like bitch at us for that.
Please do.
So
but
that's whatever.
I guess what I don't understand is, why isn't there the Edward of United States?
I don't know, like, why aren't there more people? Well, here's the other thing.
It's a rocket. I mean, it's electrical engineering science, but it's not a mystery how to make a high quality analog video.
Right.
You get the right components, you get the right gear, you can fucking make it happen.
And
now
you can't avoid some of this tariff stuff by where you're like, some things you can get outside of China, but there are still going to be some things I don't even know in a cable if you can get really outside of China, like the connectors. Like you could get PCBs, you could get components, you could get cabling, but there's always going to be some I feel like it is like, why hasn't there been, it's weird that there hasn't been somebody to come in and kind of challenge that market and say, like Edward, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to grind it out by getting my feet wet, making these cables, learning a good process, doing really transparent things with customers. Again, like we always say, showing everything, that like the way it looks when you're finished as a finished product, the inside. I think the cables are kind of like everything else. People don't sometimes understand how much a cable can make a difference. And then also they think they might be getting something, and then they open it up and they're like, oh my gosh, this is just like, looks awful. And at the same time too, I feel like I've made some cables and it's very tedious, like tiny soldering hand shit. It could be a pain in the neck.
So Ed in the chat, Edward is alluding to the same conclusion that when I had this same rant to Mike Chi, that he came to the same conclusion. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's very hard to do. It's very labor intensive. Nobody wants to do that shit. That's why, even though it seems like a pain to have to find a supplier in China, find high quality, get test samples, get them sent, ensure that whole, and that's what
HD Retrovision.
Exactly. HD Retrovision have done and have been able to maintain a very high quality production line with that. Like, yeah, to make them yourself is hard, laborious work.
Well,
and maybe I'm a boomer now. I'm like, why isn't there some kid, electrical engineering kid in college doing it? Why is it left to this crazy
there could be
lady who doesn't have a place to live to be the only person in continental United States who makes cables? But right, Edward does make. Why is not more people doing this? Because it's hard friggin' work to hand make a high quality analog.
It's something too that you could make a mistake on pretty easily, right? So you have to make it, you have to check everything, and your margins are not huge. So you can understand where, and then like you say, well, and then if you do get good at it, it's like, well, you can't go and make more cables than you physically are able to make. So even if you become the best at it, you're always capped by basically the amount of cables you can make, or whomever you decide to employ that's capable of doing the same thing. It's like that. That's where you're getting locked in. You can't really, if you mass production, then you are talking about guys like Mike Chi and HD Retrovision. Mass production involves then outsourcing to the best factories that do this stuff, which are obviously in China. And so that's why it's like, well, like you don't have HD Retrovision. Those guys aren't sitting in their shops making cables individually anymore, right? They're trying to design, they're doing all logistics stuff.
Now, Ronnie in the chat points out an excellent point. Retro gaming cables in the UK are another EU, let's say European rather, supplier of cables.
Yeah.
And as much as I've understood, retro gaming cables do hand make themselves. There's an electrical engineering degree. He loves to talk about that. So there is hand making, and that's not outsourcing. So that is another. I would have done that as well. That is another great place to do if the shipping or whatnot out of the UK doesn't work for you. Ronnie's another example for that. So
Yes, and I was going to say there's them, and then there's Insurrection Industries also makes some cables too here in the United States.
Does he hand make them, or does he get them?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he's probably getting to somewhere else, but also, you know, they're not. It's not. They're not always in stock too. It's just another thing, and it's
I'm not dissing on Insurrection quality. Don't get me wrong. I'm just not sure that he's hand making them.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that it's.
I don't know.
I don't think so either. I think it's probably more because, yeah, he's not hand making them himself. I know that. It's got to be more of having someone else do it to your standard, and then that's it.
But when you, Steve, when you talked about that difficulty, that when you've got a business that is based on handcrafting these things from someone who is very knowledgeable, I mean, you can't just have any idiot come along and, I mean, maybe you could, I don't know, maybe not. That reminded me of the discussions that we used to have back in the day. I'm like, Steve, what about your business? How are you going to grow it? It's just you fucking working in your garage and you are the single point of failure. But that, to me, that has there's a difference with your business because, I mean, you're not working in analog video cables for $20 a pop. You're working in these high-end, you've got, you know, friends like Ronnie who are clearly dropping a lot of money overall on these things. Those sets are only appreciated over time. So while you are one dude and you have decided, because I was like, Steve, get an offsider, get a guy. Why aren't you doing this stuff? I remember our early podcast where I used to hassle you about this. But you have been proven right because you are working on handcrafted, high quality, high value items. And not to say a cable isn't a high value, it is, but it's still 20, 30, 40 bucks per cable, right? So they're different kind of things. I don't know, maybe you could get an offsider if you're making cables, teach them enough to be able to make a great cable. I don't know, it's still labor. I don't know.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, but at the same notion, I'm still capped on what I can do. Like I'm still capped on the number of CRTs I can look at. So I'm just lucky that there's no, honestly, there's no viable competition to me, right? I mean, if you think about it, let's be honest, there's no like, there is competition to me, but there's like, if you want to go, if your dream is to have, I mean, this sounds so cocky and ridiculous, but if your dream is to have basically like the Michael Jordan of CRTs today, work on your CRT. That is possible. You're going to pay for it, but it's possible. But what's the other choice? There are other choices, but I'm showing in these videos that your other choices are risky.
And I want to even say there might even be one or two other choices out there who are of comparable quality. We don't say who's better, who's worse. Look, I think for all intents, I don't want to go out. I'm gonna. Andy's not bad. Right?
No, and I'm not. This isn't my thing. My thing is, I'm
dissing,
I'm not, and this is. I don't even consider like that. They are not. I'm talking about full time.
They're not competitors. Yeah,
full time. Like they have as much. Like I refer work to them. Anybody that's in their area that they're willing to take on, because this is not their full time job. They have enough work too to do extra stuff if they want to.
You are in an area where
the same thing with Pat. It's like
so our age, our people besides me have enough money to pay these things.
Right.
The whole cost of these units are going up. So that's kind of, I guess, my point originally. An analog video cable is not really going up in, appreciating in price. Where Randy's CRT is appreciating in price. These sets are going up. We've talked extensively that now you're not just working on PVMs anymore. You're working on consumer sets because of the way that market's shifting. So you're working on individual high value products providing, and the hot rod example is an awesome analogy for this sort of thing. So yeah, there can be a couple of you and it can still be, there's no competition between you guys, right? There can be a few of you all working at a very high level. We don't have to say one person's better than the other. And it's still more than enough work to go around.
Yeah. And it's like, I want people to, if they're actually, again, doing good work, I want them to do the good work. What I don't like is, oh my gosh.
Oh, Troy!
What are you doing, Troy? Team JVC.
JVC.
Oh, we are live, Troy. Thank you for the massive $200 Team JVC super chat.
Thank you, Troy. We appreciate. Holy shit! What can we talk about for the next 10 minutes?
Right now,
we talk about JVCs or something. Love it. He's got that. Do you know Troy? How do we know Troy? Why is Troy here?
I don't
Troy's
know.
Great.
Yeah, I just dropping bangers.
Well, tell us more about yourself, my friend. Go ahead.
Steve. Like, I always too. Here's the thing. I want, when people come to me, I try to be very upfront with them. Part of the reason I document things and I also like do the videos and stuff is to show them like how to work on things. But I also want them to look at it and say, wow, to do that job the right way. And if I really care about that thing, that looks like maybe it's something that's a little bit more out of my wheelhouse. Or if I'm serious about attempting that repair, that whatever it is, I should follow Steve's advice and start with something that's less important. Hone my skills, develop that over time before I dive in to a Sony BVM, a Sony PVM. Because when I first got started with this, I would run into that, Lewis, where somebody would say, hey, I was following your videos and I thought I could do this myself. And they'd send me pictures of something they just destroyed, right? Because they overestimate, the simplicity of it. They underestimate that. And, you think, oh, well, it doesn't need to be that precise, but it does need to be that kind of precise. I mean, you're really like, you're removing things that you can tear stuff up, and that's the hardest part. So anyway,
doing good, man. It's very doing good. I mean, you document everything, and that's all you can do. You put the stuff out there. You make extensive documentations, as Randy said. Randy was saying he's got one guy in Jersey and he's the worst. One guy in Pennsylvania. Both of them are screwed up. But do those guys provide the documentation? Do they provide the images? Do they go all the way? And so if someone's showing their work in any retro, any mods, any sort of homemade homebrew creators, let's say, are they showing their work? Do they have a track history of showing it? Are they someone who wants to show pictures on Twitter or wherever of their work, and you can look at that? Are they, that is really what you need to look for, and that probably means you got to pay a bit more.
Well, yeah, right. You're going to pay. It's like anything. It's like you go and you want the best person to work on your car that's experienced on your exact type of vehicle, and you want them to do the job right, and you want to see the documentation of it done all the way. Well, you're not going to go over to like, Meineke and expect them to have techs that are in there taking pictures of everything, doing everything. Yeah. No offense, but same kind of thing. And what also I like, this is a deep down goal that I think about sometimes that pushes me to do some of this stuff. I like the fact of being able to kind of raise the standard or the bar for this hobby business. I want people that do good work to be able to say they do good work, and then people that buy it get what they expected. I don't want people to buy stuff that is like the old legendary gluey Dracon modded RGB NES that you opened up, was modded to all garbage, and was covered in a pound of glue, and you paid hundreds for this thing. I always felt like, man, that was such a bad thing to do. And it was like, this is already a niche hobby. We don't want to run people off who are good-hearted, want to come in and just play some old retro games, want to get into this. and then actually punish them by screwing them over by scamming them. That always rubbed me the wrong way. So I was like, let's raise the bar. And also, I feel like it's a good path to inspire other people that say, you know what, I could take this path and actually differentiate myself within it and make myself a viable part. Like you said, if you make cables, guess what? You could go on and make cables, find a couple of different rooms and hone your skills, do whatever it is, document your work and or consoles, anything. And people are going to feel more comfortable doing that work with you than other people. Tell them a straight up thing, value your work, value your time. And it's like, I'm hopeful too, that other people can kind of use that system and say, you know what, that actually sounds like a smart way to try to get a small hobby business that I'm doing off the ground, start it going and do it, you know, like,
absolutely
get the business rolling.
Me too. So, hey, I just checked,
Is Bob on?
RGB and Bob's live. So maybe we should all head over and hang out on Bob's
everybody
channel
go
for
drop a
while.
giant horse in Bob's chat. If you're over
I
here,
put the link in. Let's
Put
go to
the
Retro
log in.
RGB. Bob's he's testing a Neptune. What is it? Deep dive audio. Oh my god, Bob's fucking audio and video test. The most boring shit ever, but it's still fun. No, I'm joking. It's fun. He's got the Neptune. He's testing that. So let's go over and hang out with Bob for a bit.
Everybody go drop over on Bob. Thank you for hanging out today. If you missed the show, we were going for almost 2 hours, so you can go back. It'll be live or archived on the channel. Go back and watch it from the beginning if you want. We had a lot of awesome discussions for the first 15 minutes, and then we went into an amazing in-depth repair. But let's go over and join Bob. Thanks, Troy, for that incredibly awesome super chat. Thank you, everybody who joined us today. Any final words, Lewis? See you at Bob's.
We're all good. Thank you very much, Steve. It's been a pleasure. I'm glad we had a full 2 hours. It's lovely
to
have a nice long chat with you again,
we'll
my
see
friend.
you in a couple